It's a Waiver Wire Tuesday, and today we're going to cover a bunch of wide receivers off the waiver wire so you can get a look at some of the advanced metrics, get a look at their situation, and see which ones you like and pick up the ones you like off your waiver wire. We're covering wide receivers for deeper leagues, some of the shallow wide receivers as well, just in case you're in a small league. That way everybody gets a little something for them. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're going deep on the waiver wire every day throughout the week. We're using these videos to help you set your matchups. We're doing deep dives on all the trending players with the You Need series, so you can get a good idea whether or not you want to pick that player up. But you need to click that subscribe button right now because you do not want to disappoint Ric Flair. We're going to start off though with our first wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall. And he's been sitting on waivers or maybe on the back end of your bench here. We got 6 targets last week at 17.6% target share. We also got the touchdown. Looking at his last 3 games, 5 targets, 4 targets, 6 targets, 15 targets in his last 3 games. So averaging about 5 targets a game there. Solid. Solid work for Ricky Pearsall. We're a rookie wide receiver. We're drafted in the first round. We're very sudden getting in and out of our breaks. We got sticky hands. We can make highlight reel grabs. We saw that at Florida last year. This is a wide receiver that's developing, getting better. We saw that over the course of his career at college with both collegiate programs. Ricky Pearsall is a guy that could gel well in this offense. He fits well in this offense. We're already starting to see him get some volume. So this is a wide receiver you may want to pick up off waivers. He's young, and younger players are the guys that usually break out to become league winners. I'm talking about guys that becomes main staples in fantasy football, not just guys that come out with like a 3 to 4 game run. Ricky Pearsall has a lot of upside that can manifest in this offense. Jauan Jennings, you want to look at him. He has proven to hit whenever Debo or Ayuk's out, and Ayuk's definitely going to be out. Jauan Jennings can hit. He got 11 targets. He might be your preference, but he's probably stashed because he is the wide receiver people targeted because of what he did earlier in the season. But if he's there and you want to get him, go get him. Get the guy you want. Get the guy you want. I think Pearsall's got a lot of upside for the stretch, but Jauan Jennings already proved that he's a main staple in this offense. Get the guy you want. I like them both in this offense. Jalen Coker is a guy you might want to look at. 8 targets last week, his most targeted game this season. But the thing about him, the big red flag, is we got a bye coming up, and then we got the Chiefs. 2 weeks where you're probably not going to use them. You're definitely not using them this week. And against the Chiefs, that's a rough one. That's a rough one. After that, we got a good playoff schedule for the Panthers, but I don't know if it's going to be utilized because Adam Thielen's also coming back. But Jalen Coker is grading well on PFF grades. He's doing well on the tape when we look at the All-22. We're getting workload. There are some games it's going to be up and down because the Panthers are up and down. It's going to be weird. But if you need him, if you're in a deeper league and you like him, you want him as a handcuff or a lottery ticket, there you go. Quentin Johnston scoring touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine. We got sticky hands downfield. We're a contested catch guy downfield, which means we should be getting air yards every game. Last week, it was a little bit lower. We only got 2 targets in that matchup, but we were up on the Titans a bit. And then on top of that, last week against the Browns, 5 targets, 4 catches, and a touchdown. And then prior to that, we were up and down with the production. Kind of what you would expect because the Chargers aren't really dynamic throwing the ball downfield. They're not really aggressive with it, but he's one of the playmakers in the offense. He's getting those deep targets, and he's getting those opportunities. You might want Quentin Johnston, but he might be rostered too. But A.D. Mitchell is a hot piece on the waiver wire right now, and he could be in his ascension right now. A.D. Mitchell's got a lot of upside. We got 4.3 speed. We were one of the top wide receivers in the draft class in 2024. He was one of those guys we were looking at the combine that could be a potential first-round pick. And mind you, this is a wide receiver class that's about 20 deep of wide receivers that had day 2 grades or better. And he's one of those wide receivers. He can stretch the field. He can also create separation off the break with his route running. He's a very dynamic asset for this team. And he's a guy that could explode on any given Sunday. He's a good lottery ticket for the back end of your roster. He's a good wide receiver just to have, especially if you got the space. If you're looking for a lottery ticket wide receiver for the back end of the season that could just ignite, this could be a guy. 6 targets last week. We got the volume. We're getting air yards. Michael Pittman's banged up. We're looking at him for the long term. A.D. Mitchell's got a lot of upside here. Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is a guy that's been up and down all season, but those ups have been up. They've been helping you out in fantasy. We got a 20% target share. We're running more routes. We're getting more volume with Pittman out. That's good for Alec Pierce. We're a mainstay in the offense. You know what you're going to get out of him. You're either getting nothing or everything. That's the type of wide receiver we got here. But we might get a little bit more volume with Pittman out. We got the Jets on the road. That's a little dicey. But if you're hurting a wide receiver, you really don't care. If you're looking at the waiver wire right now, week 11, you're hurting a wide receiver, you need a wide receiver. If you really don't care, you want something to play the matchups with, Alec Pierce is a guy to look at. John Metchie is a wide receiver to root for nonetheless. Pick him up if you want because Nico Collins is going to be out for maybe a little bit. Maybe he's back soon. We're watching the injury reports hard on Nico Collins. We got Dallas coming up. We're getting volume in the offense. We got 6 targets in last week's matchup. 18.8% target share. The volume's there. He's a good dynamic route runner. At Alabama, he would get the deep targets downfield and the short targets due to his ability to break off routes, him having a good understanding of the route tree. He's already just a very skilled wide receiver. Fits well in this offense. John Metchie is a guy to pay attention to nonetheless. Marquez Valdes-Scantling. 3 targets, 3 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. A big splash performance last week with the Saints. We're seeing his workload increase because, one, they don't have anybody else to throw the ball to. We don't know how long Chris Olave is going to be out. That's a big impact to the offense. MVS has some speed to burn. I look for him to be a splash play dandy. Like, he's a wide receiver I'm not excited to get off the waiver wire. I am excited just to gamble with him in daily fantasy football. If I want to gamble on a wide receiver, this is one of those gamble wide receivers you just throw in. Close your eyes and just hope the fantasy gods give it to you that Sunday because he's going to stretch it deep downfield. Derek Carr's going to throw the YOLO ball. If he brings in 1 or 2 of those, you're going to get one of these. But there's also a chance that he gets you 1 fantasy point like he did the previous week. He's going to start running more routes, start seeing more snaps as he gets more involved in the offense. He's only been with the team for a short bit, but still, he's going to be one of those YOLO plays. Some of you guys are like, nah, I don't want that. But there's some people that's going to be in that situation when it comes to lineup setting, especially in some of these weeks where there's more buys, that they may just do that. They may just say, fuck it, I'll just put him in my lineup and let him roll and let's see what happens. That's the type of wide receiver you got here. Mike Williams is probably going to be in that territory too because he's a good boundary wide receiver that gets downfield. And on top of that, Russ is cooking, which is good for benches, which is good for a play off the waiver wire. If you want to go YOLO, you only live once. If you want to do that with your lineup and just close your eyes and pray to the fantasy gods, because we know George Pickens is going to get at least 5 targets per game, if not more, and get a lot of those air yards. However, Mike Williams can get that deep ball effect, that contested play effect, that red zone effect, and that could be rather splashy, rather volatile in this offense, and this offense can be rather volatile in a passing game. They can get in these weird matchups, but they're moving the ball well. As he acclimates to the offense, you may want him on your team even more than what we're seeing now. Right now, he projects as a volatile play, which is great for fantasy football, especially if you're scraping together off the waiver wire right now because you're hurting at wide receiver. I think Mike Williams, if you know what you're doing with them, I think he's a good pickup for the long term, especially if you're in 12 or more teams, 12 minimum. If I'm in a 10-team league, I'm kind of staying away because I want my wide receivers to score closer to the top 10, and that's going to be harder to do with George Pickens there, but he can do it randomly. We're looking at Ray McCloud. I'm kind of cooling off on him. The volume has not been there since week 5. He's averaging 3 to 4 targets a game. It's not really enough to get it done. But again, he's a gamble wide receiver in the right matchup. Not really this week against the Broncos, unless they have to get creative throwing the ball. However, if you got him on your roster, are you really going to start him over anybody? On top of that, if you're in a 14-teamer, 16-teamer, 18-teamer, you're probably looking at him. He's still getting volume in the offense. They're still going to have to use him when they got to get creative, when they can't push it downfield. maybe as a gamble in those situations. But when you're in those leagues, and you'll know with Ray McCloud, Elijah Moore is just getting a lot of routes, getting a lot of opportunity in the offense. He's on waivers in a lot of leagues. He's like the only Browns wide receiver you can really tap into, because a lot of people are tapping into the Browns wide receivers because Jameis Winston is Captain YOLO here. But still, if you're looking for volume, if you're looking for targets, his last 3 games here, 6, 12, 9, everything has increased with this Browns passing attack. Throwing Jeudy out there just in case he's there. Throw a line out for him because the volume's there. But unlike Elijah Moore, the air yards are more steady. They're deeper downfield. Those targets, those deep balls are money for you. I like Cedric Tillman a little bit more because the deep ball is more consistent and how he plays the game is more consistent with that. But they are pushing it a little bit deeper to Jeudy in this offense with Jameis Winston. That is something to pay attention to. Adam Thielen's going to be back sooner than later. He should be stashed on the IR in your league. However, a lot of people don't do that because a lot of people push back on me when I drop IR content saying, hey, stash this running back on IR because it's a free square. The IR spot's a free square. Just pick them up, throw them on IR, do what you got to do with that. Drop the jabroni, pick up another jabroni to make them fit in there. That's how that's going to work. But Adam Thielen's a guy you may want to look at. You can make 2 waiver wire claims this week. You can drop a jabroni, pick up Adam Thielen, throw him on IR, then pick up your next wide receiver. You can do that after your waivers run. You can really just peg out which jabroni you want to drop. You're good to go. The only thing you're down is dropping a jabroni. Parker Washington didn't do a thing last week. We're still watching him. He's still getting a lot of work in the offense. Kind of, sort of, not really. He's projected to do so. I don't really like him as a play to win your league, but if you're looking for a wide receiver that can get some targets over the middle, get work in the slots, and you're trying to make the gamble on that, then that's something you may want to look at. We are on the road against Detroit. That could be a game that could peddle some volume. Jalen, McMillan, we did not get any run last week. We've been dealing with an injury. Eventually, he'll be back. And when he's on the field, he's running more routes than all the other wide receivers, getting more opportunity. Outside of that, it's Raheem Jarrett. Raheem Jarrett's running a lot of routes in this offense, but I don't think a lot of you guys are running and chomping off the bit to try to get Raheem Jarrett. But if I'm in a 14-team plus or more league, like a 16-teamer, or if I got to start like 5, 6, 7 wide receivers or something like that, I'm looking at Raheem Jarrett off the waiver wire. Trey Palmer's a deep threat. He's a threat to just bring in the deep ball. He hasn't yet. Maybe that means he's due. Maybe that means it's not going to happen. Mike Evans is going to be back sooner or later. He's pegged to be back after the bye, and also the Bucs are on bye. So really, these wide receivers are too volatile right now to really just peg into. McMillan, just getting the opportunities out there over the long term, maybe as a gamble, but you really don't have to, considering how volatile they are. Sterling Shepard, too, out of the slot, getting that work. He's coming in questionable in a lot of games, so that's something to look at. Maybe if you're in a pinch and in a bind later on down the road, I'd be watching that. Mike Evans is eventually going to be back soaking up those deep targets, and it's going to be him and Cade Otton together, probably going to get almost a 50% share. Jalen McMillan running a lot of routes when he's back healthy. This offense is going to be volatile. Raheem Jarrett has earned work, has earned routes. At least that has earned routes. This offense is going to be weird once we get to the back 9 of the season. Kayshon Boutte just keeps running routes and is starting to get targets. We're waiting for fantasy points, but he keeps running routes, keeps getting targets. If I'm in a league, 14 teams or more, I'm looking at him hard depending on what I got and depending on what's on waivers and depending on my starting requirements. Same with DeMario Douglas. What I don't like about him is last year and this year, he's always getting you like a 20% target share every game. It's up and down, sometimes a little bit lower, but usually it's 20+% share of the targets. However, the ADOT's low, so he's got to score a touchdown or he's got to get you yards after the catch or a large volume of targets, which usually he's hovering around like the 5 range of targets. Sometimes he'll get you 9 here and there, sometimes 3. That being said, with that 20% target share, but actually the numbers being low in volume on the targets here, that's something that I'm a little bit leery of. But if I'm looking for straight target share for my wide receivers coming off the waiver wire, and I want something a little safe, here you go. I'm not picking him up to win my league, though. Christian Watson, if he's there, deep threat, okay target share. He's a guy that can hit on any given Sunday, but can also bust on any given Sunday type of deal. Very volatile, up and down. But If you want to throw him in your lineup as a YOLO play, this is probably one of the better YOLO plays at the wide receiver position due to the nature of the offense. So there you go. And when you ask for start-sit decisions off YOLO plays, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Because honestly, you just throw them in. You got to have the balls for the YOLO play, because if you're not confident with it, the universe is not going to give you the YOLO. Think about it that way. So be confident with your YOLO wide receiver. Just throw them in. Drop the nuts on the table. Just do it. And Dontayvion Wicks is another YOLO play with lower probabilities, but we got a carousel effect with the Green Bay Packers. Any given Sunday, he can go off. He does create separation. Runs less routes, though. Gets less targets. Less consistent on the workload front. Rashod Bateman is Captain YOLO. He did have a run of like 3 games where he's giving you something in fantasy production, but he's getting the deep targets. They got Johnston there, and they also got Zay Flowers. Those two are going to zap up targets, but Rashod Bateman's role is going to stay the same. They're going to push him downfield. He's going to get those YOLO balls, and he's going to be up and down for the rest of the season. If anything, it might be a little bit more spiky, as in you might see the high games still, but maybe more of the low games, and the lower games might be even lower. But still, if the Ravens are in a game where you see it being a shootout and you want a wide receiver that's up and down volatile like that to put in your lineup, Rashod Bateman's there on the waiver wire, you're okay to do that. It ain't going to kill you. Quite frankly, we've been watching him all year. You may want to pick him up. I suggest him for deeper leagues, though. 16-teamers or more. Maybe 14-teamers if it's really hurting. And also depending on your starting requirements. But Troy Franklin, he's getting work. He's getting opportunity. But it's on the down clip right now. Something to pay attention to. But it was against the Chiefs. A tough defense against the run, the pass. And games where it's projected to be more of a shootout, more volume in the passing offense that's less dirty, Troy Franklin might be a look for you. Vele scored his first touchdown, 4 targets in this game. He's going to get work underneath and opportunities. Again, deeper leagues, this might be the play for you. Jalen Tolbert, we're souring on him because we're souring more on the Cowboys. That's understandable. But still, if you want to chase 5 targets, the 6 targets, the 5, and the 10, that's something to look at. You don't know if that's going to hit for you in fantasy production. It's probably going to be volatile. It's probably going to be ugly. It's probably going to be dirty. I don't really like him much in 12-team leagues. He's definitely not going to be a league winner down the stretch. More of a matchup play specialist, hoping that he hits on that upside. Michael Wilson is a matchup play specialist who's up and down, getting you around 10 to 15 fantasy points on the upside when we're looking at him on the season. But we also got a low side. Really depends on how the game's flowing and if they're shutting down Marvin Harrison Jr. and they got to go the other way. Michael Wilson, though, if you're looking for other targets, if they're in a shootout, if you're looking for a wide receiver just to play the matchups with, down the road might be a guy to look at. Trey Tucker, honestly, I don't really like him that much for fantasy anymore, but I do like him for deeper leagues if I'm hurting because I know he's going to run a lot of routes. He's going to be on the field, and if you need that, if you need the workload, if I'm in a 16-teamer, 18-teamer, if I'm starting a ton of wide receivers, or if I got a weird league with a lot of flexes, you know he's going to be on the field. He's going to be running a lot of routes. You know targets are going to go his way. I mean, there's games where he's getting 8, 6 targets, 5 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets. It's not accumulating the fantasy production, but that could roll the other way when you're getting that much workload. Just because you're on a soft spot right now doesn't mean it does not roll the other way. When you're getting the workload, it could revert back. Trey Tucker, not a call out to revert back, but the workload's there if you want to play around with it. Demarcus Robinson was low last night. However, he's a sneaky play. When it came to the wide receivers last night, there were only 3 wide receivers running routes on a serious clip. The 2 mainstays, Puka and Cooper Kupp, and then Demarcus Robinson. And Demarcus Robinson is a sneaky play every week that you do not know if he's going to hit, but he sneaks past the defense when they're concentrating on those other wide receivers and could come up with a splash play. We've seen that a few times already in the small sample of those 2 wide receivers being back. Mack Hollins is the Keon Coleman of this offense right now when Keon Coleman's out. Deep play specialist, good at contested catches. He has proven to be productive with other teams in short spurts. Mack Hollins is the guy to look at. We've already made this call up and down throughout the season. We've had games with 6 targets. We have games with 5 targets. This guy's getting volume too, and he's soaking up air yards. He's a good gamble play if you need it. Noah Brown's getting volume here. Looking at the targets in the last 3 games, pretty much last 5, because we do have a downer in there. Week 6, we got 8. Week 7's our downer with 1. Week 8, we got 6. Week 9, we got 6. Week 10, we got 7. We're getting volume. We're getting opportunity. That's all you can really ask for with some of these wide receivers off the waiver wire, because if they were consistent with fantasy production, they'd be rostered. So you're looking at guys who are getting targets, who are running routes, who are getting opportunity. Noah Brown's doing that. He's heating up. And you may want to look at him, especially if you're hurting a wide receiver and they got a good matchup coming up. But those are the wide receivers going into week 11. We got deep plays. We got shallow plays. We got all kinds of plays to help you out. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.